Well, good morning, outdoors people. I'm glad you decided to stop by. For those of you new here, my name is Chris Miller and I operate Miller Outdoors. It's a guide service in northern New Hampshire. I do hunts of all types, but what I do predominantly is snowshoe hare hunts with beagles. So this morning we are out scouting again. You can hear the dogs in the distance. I dropped the tailgate 5 minutes ago, they hit a rabbit and gone. I can just hear him coming back now. Right up this edge, real close. Oh, crap, I guess he crossed right here. He crossed up here, I wasn't even watching. Right parallel with the road now, away from us. Yeah, he's dipsy-doodling in there. They started him up here on the left-hand side of this road, so I can't imagine he's going to stay down the bottom forever. But you never know. Beautiful morning. A little bit breezy, but other than that, it is just beautiful. That joker just came out up here, ran up the road towards us, maybe 15 yards, and then went back up in on this left-hand side. I tried to hit the button on the camera when I saw him coming up the road, but I'm not sure I did. Let's go up and have a look-see at the hounds. I think he went back in somewhere by this yellowing tree up here. That's only 5 yards or so from where he went across going this way the first time. That's where he came out. Come up the road. Then he went in on that side. Figure it out, meatball. Dogs always have a hard time in the road for some reason. Come on, here he is, here he is, here he is, here he is, here he is. We got one. Get the old buck here. Here he's up, here he is, 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 yeah. Nope, there they go. He grabbed it. Why they have such a hard time in the road a lot of times, but they do. Yeah, who knows why. They just have a hard time in the road a lot of times. I got a handful of questions after the last video where I did the game updates. Here in northern New Hampshire, I talked about snowshoe hare numbers, grouse numbers, moose numbers, and deer numbers. And after that video, I got quite a few questions by email. Some interesting questions specifically about beagles and hare hunting. I brought them with me this morning, and I figured I'd answer them in video format. Let's go answer some of those questions. I think it makes sense to set up the camera right here, overlooking the place he likes to cross down here. So if he does it while we're answering these questions, we'll get another look at him. I was just setting up this camera, and that joker crossed right here. Maybe 30 feet from the camera here. I was just setting the camera up. He went bouncing across. I assume that's the one they're running. They're down 125 yards or so straight down in the woods. So it may get loud here in a minute. They generally don't have much trouble when the rabbit goes straight across the road like it did. Only when it runs the length of the road. See how they do. You guys are looking pretty foolish. Keep going. Yep, there he goes. The running isn't great this morning, but they're keeping him moving. It's not always pretty. All right, they're up in the woods. Let's get to some of these questions. I've been snowshoe hare hunting with Beagles since 1978 and have been doing it professionally for the last 19 years. Over all that time, I've had the pleasure of hunting over hundreds and hundreds of Beagles from all sorts of bloodlines from all around the country, and have hunted with tons of folks from all around the country who enjoy getting after rabbits with hounds. For many years, I kept a pretty low profile running my guide business here in northern New Hampshire. Earlier this year, I came to the realization that I should probably get a bit more active online and prepare for the day when I'm not physically able to spend week after week humping through these big woods, chasing animals around. I'm no spring chicken anymore, and each year it gets a little bit more difficult to physically do this. Anyhow, that's my story. So let's get to the hare hunting and Beagle questions. The first question we have comes from Jared from Massachusetts by email. At what age is it appropriate to bring a puppy out hunting with you? Jared, it's never too early to bring a puppy out with you, provided you're not looking to shoot directly over them. It can get tricky with young pups because they mostly want to hang around your feet and chew on sticks and that sort of thing. So if you're dead set on getting a shot at a rabbit, then you probably don't want to bring them with you on those days. But if you keep bringing them, eventually they'll get bored with hanging around your feet and they will join the other dogs. Some dogs that happens at 4 months old. Some dogs it happens many months later. With all things being equal, it's definitely better to get them started younger. That doesn't mean that if they don't start until they're 1.5 years, say, that they won't turn out to be a crackerjack rabbit dog. Patience can often be required and rewarded, but it's also important to know when it's time to cut your losses. That'll come from experience. She only went up in there 125 yards and turned and came right back. He may want to cross down below again. Oh, there he is right here. Cross right there. Right, straight down the road and back in on the other side. He's not a little small rabbit, he's good sized. He was running like he was a young one. A lot of times the young ones will run kind of like a cottontail, small little circles and things, and go 150 yards this way and 100 yards that way, where the big ones tend to run the big racetrack loops. Come on, you jokers. Who's going to be the hero here in the road? And a boy, right down the middle of the road. Right down the middle of the road up here. Ready to go in. Oh, there it is. A lot of guys frown on helping the dogs, but hey, you're part of the team too. Keep the run alive, man. There's no Beagle alive that's so talented where they don't need some help once in a while. Let's go answer some of those questions. The next question, Frank from Maine asks by Facebook message, I'm having a hard time getting in front of the rabbit to get a shot. What can I do to get a shot? This is one of those simple questions, Frank, with a very complex answer. It'd take me an hour or two to explain everything I've learned over the years. We just don't have time for that now, but stay tuned for a video on that very subject. I hear from guys that they have a buddy who always seems to have the knack of getting in front of the rabbit, or they see me doing it and say, how do you know where to stand? How do you seem to always be kind of in the right spot? But it's a big subject, and I will do an entire video on that and really get into the nitty-gritty that'll be sure to help a lot of folks out. So stay tuned for that. Okay, the next question comes from Tom from Vermont by email. What portion of the Beagle puppies you've encountered have turned out to be good hunting dogs? Thanks for the question, Tom. That really depends on how you define a good hunting dog. Depending on your standards, that could be anywhere from 10% to 75%. It really just depends on your standards. Bill from New Hampshire asks by email, how do you teach a Beagle not to run off game like deer and moose? To be honest, the biggest thing you can do when they're very young is to never put them in a position to run anything but a rabbit. And you reinforce that with putting them on rabbit after rabbit after rabbit while they're developing. That's the best case scenario. I've had dogs that have gone their whole life and when I've done that have never shown an interest in off game. So that's the best case scenario. Some Beagles, unfortunately, are genetically predisposed to running all sorts of different things. And if you don't break them in a very strong way when they're young, they'll get set in their ways and they'll be very hard, if not impossible, to break from that habit, from that bad habit. So know the ancestry of your dogs. Keep an eye on the genetics and the bloodlines, and don't introduce anything that shows a propensity for running off game. There are bloodlines out there where a very high portion of the puppies will really want to go out of their way to run off game. And there are genetics out there that don't really seem to like it, don't want to go after it. So just be careful on the genetic front. And that's half the battle, really. And if a dog truly loves running things other than rabbits, and they do exist, just send them down the road. Don't waste your time. Life is just too short to put up with that crap. It really. Send them down the road, move on to something else, and don't think you can save every dog, because you can't. Tim from Virginia asks by email, how much time do you put into a new gun dog Beagle that's not going to make the grade before you cut your losses and move on? That's a tough one, Tim. It's kind of different each time. I guess the way I can put it is